Thanks, guys, so much for meeting with us today. We're really excited about this one. We've talked to Adam a bunch of times, and we all want to learn a lot more about FROs and talking about kind of being science adjacent. So just to kind of give some background, can you guys each give kind of a brief description of what you're working on now and how you got to this point?
Sure. I'm Anastasia. I got into this because I have a background at hard tech. I worked at a robotics startup for a while. I was early at Neuralink. I've worked at a COVID testing startup, spun up supply chain for much of the testing that ended up going through Los Angeles. And I was really interested in figuring out how to be most impactful in the hard tech space, particularly like maybe patient capital or VC funds. And I was asking my community for introductions and people, and someone introduced me to Adam, and he replied to my email saying, no, you shouldn't do that. You should do FROs instead. And then I think we started working together the next day.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see. I was a physics undergrad. When I was in undergrad, I was basically just trying to learn stuff. But once I had like a very, I guess, hubristic kind of conception of what science was from a bunch of books that I read as a teenager, and kind of my overall impression of how science projects were supposed to work and how the scientific ecosystem was supposed to be set up. And my physics undergrad did not disabuse me of any of that. It was just theoretical physics. It was great. Once I got to grad school, I started almost immediately feeling, even though I had a very high freedom fellowship, very high freedom advisor program and all that, I felt kind of this immediate mismatch between what I felt like I could do as an individual scientist within the research system as it exists now, and the kinds of projects that I was interested in. Starting grad school, that was mostly about nanotechnology, but it gradually moved into neuroscience, and then I basically tried to do large, medium scale kind of team-based neuroscience, neurotechnology development projects for like the following 10 years, and didn't really find the exact right institutional or funding kind of home for that. And so that leads fairly directly to what we're working on with FROs. Yeah.
So they kind of, if this is a good summary of what you mean, these focused research organizations kind of fill a gap between something that's like a government funding agency versus a startup, because it's not necessarily directly applicable right away. Is that kind of the final goal?
Yeah. I guess the idea is that there are certain aspects of how startups function that we want to be able to mimic, even in a context that is prior to the point where you have a product that you're planning to sell to people in the near term and make a lot of money, as startups are supposed to do. So startups have various characteristics. There's a sort of medium-sized team. There's a lot of management. You can concentrate capital on that team. It's not kind of applying for one grant to do one student and then another grant to do the next student. You sort of have the whole team is funded to do a single purposeful thing that's very time-bounded. And they can ideally kind of structure their whole organization and how the management works just to, in their case, to deliver a product. But we want to be able to do that for certain kinds of research projects where that would be the right model for doing the research, which is many research projects are not like that. But.
Cool. So I guess a question for you, Anastasia, as well would be, what do you think of kind of like the long-term vision of these FROs? Or kind of like, is this kind of a central piece where you have I think it's the new wave of science that distributes all these FROs? Or are you looking for individual FROs that function independently? What's kind of the long-term ultimate goal for something like this?
I think we're both pretty flexible about the form that FROs take. We're really interested in doing highly impactful, very interesting new science. Sometimes that will be best within the nonprofit we just founded as part of the Schmidt Futures Network called Convergent Research. Sometimes we're advising another nonprofit called Astera, but also individuals may fund this. DARPA agencies may fund this. You could do this sort of as a prelude to doing a for-profit effort. You could do this as a for-profit effort and get like program-related investments or catalytic capital to do them. I think that we're really agnostic about how they happen as long as we're working on the impactful research. And I think that each particular project will have different reasons to go different directions.